Welcome to part one of a series of 3 shows with Alan Darby from the West Midlands. I'm Caroline Stevens, and I'd like to firstly talk about the corrupt court system. Over to you, Alan. Or maybe even 2 or 3 tales. So Alan, welcome to Wiltshire. Welcome to the film studios, and you are from the West Midlands. I think most people will detect your accent when you start speaking. In 1988, you were a builder and you had your own business employing 13 men. What did you discover at that moment, Alan? Over to you.
Well, Caroline, thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it. I was asked to do work for a woman that was known to me as Mrs. Jean Holt. She was a Scouts master as her husband, a Cub master and a Scouts master, and very nice people. And I gave them a quote, and when I'd finished the quote, I took it to her and I said, I will do the work under one condition: she gets her own planning permission. I don't want to be involved in making applications for planning and building regulations. Too complicated, it costs too much money, and sometimes the punters don't want you. They pick your brains and go somewhere else. So I wasn't going to do this. I left her with a quote. 2 weeks later she phoned me up. She said, can I see her? Can she see me? And I said yes. I went up. I was anticipating what she was going to say, and she said, you can have the work, and I've got the plans passed to do the work.
Oh, that makes it easy.
And it was simple, and I said okay. We signed the contracts, and I'd put a date for, I think it was a week from the time we signed the contract, that I would start. In actual fact, the person that when I was there when she phoned me up was, so she told me, the person who drew the plans. And I went through the plans with him to check everything was okay to my spec.
So he was an architect?
He was an architect. Yeah. And he was the person who presumably put the plans in, so I thought.
Through the council?
The time come.
Was this North Warwickshire?
North Warwickshire Borough Council, right. Yes. And she said she's got the planning permission passed, so I started work. It involved knocking the property, to understand, it was a watering house for the horses off the Coventry Canal. It was alongside the Coventry Canal. There were stables, there was a yard, there was bedding down stables, about 6, and feeding troughs, etc.
So that was the original structure, and you had to convert it into...
Yeah, well, I was taking all them down to build the car parking area, because she was turning industrial premises, hairdressers, a barber's, a ladies' hairdressers, a flat that was all linked together, and a flat above the hairdressers. So you've got a flat above the hairdressers, which is on the ground floor. Next to that was a barber's, part of the living accommodation for the big house, which was at the back of it in the garden. And then there was a cottage that was connected to at the right hand side of the building. So we've got the cottage, the house, the shop, and the cottage above, the flat above, which had its own access up a stairs, a flight of stairs.
Alongside the Coventry Canal, was that actually
No,
in
that was
Coventry?
on the main road on Bridge Street.
Right.
But
is that in the central Coventry, pretty much?
This is in Atherstone, Polesworth Atherstone,
right,
Warwickshire.
Okay, yeah,
Polesworth.
I know that place. Yeah.
It's right by the canal, Bridge Street, behind the fire station. So.
And you were converting it into?
Living accommodation.
Right.
A flat, the ladies' hairdressers back into the premises of the house, the man's barbers back into the front room of the house, the cottage, separating it from the rooms. The dividing walls were bricked up to take the doorways out to make it into a self-contained cottage.
Okay. And so what happened?
And at the back had its own car parking, 3 garages, right. 3 properties with 3 garages.
Okay.
And the flat had also parking area at the front, so that was a drive up, and which was right by the bridge. It was a dangerous drive up, really, because it was too close to you couldn't see till you was on top of it. So I started the work, and I had 13 builders on the job. We came to excavation work to knock the buildings down, the outbuildings, the stables. The Wayward Leaves department got involved because there was a telegraph pole that carried power wasn't a telegraph pole, it was a power pole that had to be taken down. And the Wayward Leaves people, it's called the Wayward Leaves Department, they come over from the electricity board, checked it out, it was okay. And then I built a retaining wall with over 40,000 bricks in the wall. It was over 1.5 meters thick, 6'6" high, onto the garages in the corner. So we had the wall running the length of the property, 3 garages, which turned out to be 2 because of the speed of getting the concrete to set and to hold the wall. Because when we was digging out the footings, the contractor that I had worked for the council, and he said this area is built very close on coal, and it's very close to the surface. We may hit coal. And he did hit the coal, and there was water coming through. So we've got the canal in front of me with 8 foot of earth holding the Coventry Canal back.
Oh,
and
that's not that.
And I'm 6 foot below the Coventry Canal. So
there's potential for a problem.
He could have breached that, man.
Yeah.
He could have killed people.
So what did you do then?
Stop work, and I said to Mrs. Holt, I'm stopping work, you've got to get a surveyor in straight away. We're bringing water through the ground. It's coming through on coal. And she said, okay, this was Saturday. And I said, get him in. And she said, he can't come today. So we turned up to work Sunday, and we're working away, prepping it to put the concrete down. And concrete mixers and everything was just ready, set to go to lay the concrete over this wet surface. And a man come along the Coventry Canal, and one of the workers shouted down, Alan, bloke, and he said, are you the owner? I said, no. And he said, I'm the surveyor. And I said, I'll get Mr. and Mrs. Holt. So I've gone into the house, and we've gone onto the bank, which is where the garages are going to be, the back end of the garages, which is the garden, which is level with the canal bank. We've took all this away, but there's a little bit of garden left, and the Holt stood up there. I've come there, and I introduced them to, and I walked down with the men, and we're standing watching. And Mr. Holt, Chaz, shouted, Alan, it's okay, he's past it, you can carry on, in front of all my men. And my builder turned around and said, Alan, that's very strange. He hasn't come down on Uxbridge. I said, I know. I said, but
the intimation was that it was okay to carry on.
It was on, yes. He told us to do it, but we was weary of the way he done it. He didn't come and check. He just looked at it from the top of the bank. A surveyor having water, such a serious incident would have had to come down. So who was he being paid
by? The surveyor, the council?
No, he was bogus. He was a bogus surveyor.
But the who had sent him there?
The Holts paid for him to do it. He was an old man, an old scruffy man. He looked like a tramp more than a surveyor. He wasn't a young man. He was in his late 50s.
Okay.
And he had an overcoat on, and it was a sunny day.
So this was so these were the people who had instructed this redevelopment work, renovation
told me
work,
that they got planning permission with it.
Oh right. So did you actually see the planning permission?
I've got the plans. I've got the plans.
But had the permission actually gone through the courts?
No, you don't see the planning permission. I just see the plans. I'm working off the plans, you see. And this surveyor, then this has gone through the council. It's got North Warwickshire Borough Council on the plans. And as my builder said, unusual. And I said, well, he's the surveyor, Bob. You know what I mean? He said, you can't challenge him. You never upset a surveyor. Because if you argue about that, he'll cancel it. Then you can't work.
So then what happened?
We just carried on working and done it. Then come to the end of the contract, the last week, I'd sacked my plasterer because he was doing work for her that wasn't on the schedule, that I didn't know about, that she was giving him a drink for. She was paying him to do it. She was going over my head. And she'd already told my builder that when I finished the job, she will give him the job of building a bungalow next to where the garages are, the land where they'll away, because it was a bit of flat ground there. She wanted a bungalow built. And Bob told me she just asked him to build a bungalow. Bob had been with me for years as my builder. He trusted me and I trusted him.
So was there planning permission for this as well?
No. This wasn't even applied for. This wasn't on the spec. This was, when he's finished, will you build me the bungalow on that ground?
So how did the courts become involved?
Right. Okay. Now, I'm finishing the work, and she was late paying me, and she was only paying me £1,000. Well, that wasn't covering the wage bill. So towards the end, she owed me £3,500, and I said, that's the last job, and there it is, there's pay me. And she said, I'm not paying you. Your work's not up to scratch.
Right.
And I said, well, you know, I'm not going to do no tidying up here. I'm just going to get off the site and I'm going to issue with a writ. And her husband come with a car and blocked me in. He said, you're not leaving. And I said, if you don't move your car, I'm going to drive the van at you. I'll push it out of the way. I said, I'm not playing. I said, you're kidnapping me. You're holding me to ransom. You're not going to pay me. And you say I can't leave the job. The job's finished.
Yeah.
I've signed it off. It's done. You pay me, or you show me what you need doing, and you're not satisfied with it, and you haven't done that. You're just saying you're not going to pay me. So he moved his car, and I took all my materials off. I went up to North Warwickshire Borough Council the next day and said, could I see the plans for the work I've just done at Mrs. Holt, for Mr. and Mrs. Holt? And they've gone off, and they said, 5 years before. And I said, no. I said, today I've done it in the last month, the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
She said, there's no plans. So I've got the plans, took the plans, and I've said, these are the plans I've worked at these plans, and they're looking at it. I said, there's no plans been passed from here for this. They haven't got planning permission. She said, the man said, they have also done this before and got retrospective planning application passed. And they shouldn't have done this because this was all on that same work. So what we've got the same people doing work unlawfully that they've done before unlawfully and got permission to have it passed. Now, if you do that, the council make you sign a document to say you will never do it again. If you do, there's no question of it being passed. It will be not passed. It won't be passed. It's a criminal matter, and that's what she did. So
she did it again.
She's done it again with me. So all the work I did was unlawful. So I've gone to protect myself. I've gone to a solicitor, Jill Grimmett, in Birmingham, Douglas King Wayne and Company, and I gave her £250 to start proceedings in the court. And she said, you can have legal aid. I said, well, I will need it. You know what I mean? I've only just started this business up and I've made no profits. Everything's gone into machinery. I'll be struggling to pay, but if I'm on legal aid, and she said, well, we'll have a legal aid, it'll be limited, but we can do it. And I said, okay, and left it to her. And I reported it to the police just before, 2 days before Christmas, and the police at North Warwick, Polesworth, turned around and said, it's too close to Christmas, we can't do anything, come back after Christmas. So I did. I went back in January 1989 and reported a breach. In actual fact, I said there's a planning scam going on. The council a planning scam going on. They're doing work unlawfully, and it's involving the planning officer and the building control officer, Sutton, and I can't think of the other one, John Sutton. And I said, I've been told that their children are in the same Scouts group. I said, and that's where it derives from. These are friends, and they could be Masons. And I said, in all probability, I said, but the thing is, they've done work and it's illegal. And I've got to go to court, and they're defending it. This is time's gone by, and they used our guards to defend. Now, they can't defend something that's illegal, unlawful, and she put a counterclaim in as well. She not only defended it, said the work wasn't up to scratch, and yet she's got to apply for planning permission, which she got as well. So the work's got to be well over scratch because it's got to meet every consideration, whatever. It's a very hard spec to pass.
Yeah.
Once you break the planning procedure, you've done it unlawfully. They don't let a stone be, they turn, look under every stone. But in this case, this is a criminal deception for my company because she can never get another planning. She got one, and it still goes to court. And when we're at court, to get rid of the buildings, I'm waiting for a surveyor to be given permission to enter the property, because I can't enter the property without permission, without an order. So I've applied for an order for my solicitor to get a surveyor to enter the property to counteract the counterclaim. She said one of the claims was that the sewerage in the toilet, when you pulled the toilet, the sewerage went all over the house because elastic band was holding and a plastic bag was holding the pipework together. And And
So they were looking for excuses.
anything, and I was lying. I was telling lies. I mean, bad lies. This wasn't.
So what was the outcome of the case?
I took it to court. Now, she used a firm called Argyle's, a solicitor, Robert Pidder Adams, and a partner of Argyle's, Robert Pidder Adams, and the solicitor Michael John Archer. They issued a summons to have the case moved from Birmingham County Court to, so they told me, Wolverhampton County Court. And it's on the documents. I've got the documents in there, the summons. And the summons was very strange. I felt there was something wrong with the summons, and I checked it out, and I brought a modern day summons from the court services in Birmingham that just sell all the court documents, and I've matched them up, and they are. I'll show you the difference. One was in of the County Court Act 1949, the County Court Act 1958. And the other one was 1984 of the County Court Act 1940.
So what do these acts relate to?
That was the law to transfer a case from a higher court to a lower court and an order of directions, under an order of directions. So you go to the court with this summons and you ask for an order of directions that you are going to apply to the judge to have it transferred to another court, which this case on the document it said Wolverhampton.
Right.
So it's gone before, so they say, I wasn't present. My solicitor entered the document with Argyle's as being the recipient as well. And it went before, so the document reads Judge Robin Sankey. Now the document was to be ordered on the 4th of December. The document was taken out on the 26th of September. When it was paid for, and it was court sealed on the document. Which
so it was a proper document, and it had a proper seal.
It wasn't. It was a document, and it had all the proper stamp marks. But what they said that the property was sold on the 25th, a day before the document was even registered, and the other one was sold 4 months before the document was even applied for. So we've got an house that was sold on the 17th of March. But to do this, they had to apply to get the transfer. Now, the Supreme Court practice is the white book. And each judge on his table would have a book. He would have the Bible and he would have the white book. And it's called the white book in layman's terms. And they refer to it as the white book. Its correct name is the Supreme Court practice. And it is the manual that all judges have to apply to and solicitors have to apply to. And you have to do things in a certain way in the county court and criminal court. And under no circumstances, I think it's on the order 26, I'm talking out of mind, it's on there, I've got the statement, the statutes. And it states categorically in the white book that no case can be transferred until all parties' documents have been presented in correct order. That means that there's nothing else to discuss, nothing else to challenge, nothing else to argue with. It's all been done pre the court. I've had my surveyor go in, they've had their surveyor report, they've sent me a report back, and we're now going to go to court to argue the value of what that surveyor said and what that surveyor said, and what I done and what they said.
Yep.
And that's how it is.
Yep.
And only then can it be done. A judge cannot do that under his own motion. He has got to have that. All them regulations have got to be passed in compliance to the Supreme Court practice.
But the properties were sold before they went to court?
The one was sold before that he was even applied for. One was sold on the 17th of March, and then I can't have a surveyor look at it. But it was sold by a man called J.H. Deeming brought it. I've jumped the gun a little bit. Robert Pidder Adams and Michael Archer were defending the client's counterclaim. And Robert Pidder Adams acted as the agent for the sale of the property. Now, he was also defending the client's claim, which stopped me having a surveyor check it out. Yet he acted for the sale of the property. And he done that with the other one as well. And this was a man that gave his title 10 years later as a marriage matrimonial solicitor. His partner Robert Pidder Adams was the building surveyor. the building solicitor, yeah, a matrimonial solicitor, and he got a man, which I checked it out, I investigated both the documents and the people that signed it, a man called J.H. Deeming, who was, in actual fact, a prison officer called Andrew Joseph Brown, and he was a prison officer at Winson Green Prison. And he knew the Deemings because the Deeming families had been in prison, and he obviously knew them as prisoners at Winson Green Prison. So he chose them as the people who he would forge the document under. But the only thing is, he knew the name J.H. Deeming, which was correct, but he got Deeming's address wrong.
Right, and the relevance is?
The relevance is that J.H. Deeming wouldn't sign his address wrong. Only A.J. Brown would give the wrong address. If you were signing a document, you would give your address. If I was signing a document, I would give my address. But if I was forging your signature to sign your name and address, I might make a mistake and give the wrong address, which is exactly what Brown did.
Right.
And that's what alerted me to it.
But how did they manage to sell the properties anyway when there were all these?
Oh, there's nothing to stop him. There was nothing in the courts illegal. It was all illegal because we got it in court, and they weren't taking no notice. They was talking to themselves. I was as if it was in a third dimension. I'm outside what there was going on, and I had nothing to do with this. I couldn't stop it.
What happened then?
They sold the properties. I had no means of checking, arguing what they were saying. Then they asked for a Scots schedule on the 18th of whatever it is. It's there. Now, a Scots schedule, I spoke to somebody and they said, a solicitor, I said, well, what they do, Alan, when they ask for a Scots schedule, it's a means of slowing the case down. Because in that Scots schedule, and I know what you've got to do, you've got to itemise every brick, every bag of sand that you ever brought to that job. I said, yes. He said, how long do you think that's going to take you? And I said, forever. If I can do it. He said, you won't be able to do it because some of the stuff you pay cash and you haven't got a receipt, so you can't do it correctly, but it'll take you a long time. And he said, why have they done this? And I told him, he said, and I did know the properties were sold. But until I see my solicitor, and she turned around and she said, I've been threatening a man called Tobin who was doing work for the Holts. And I said, no. She said, well, the Holts have told me that, and it's too late. So I've kicked you out. I've sacked you. And I've cancelled your legal aid. I've informed the Law Society that I'm no longer representing you. So now I've got no evidence, I've got no legal representation, and I'm threatening somebody that I don't know or track down. He was a cook at an hotel in Burton, just outside of Coventry. And I
why did your legal aid say
the Law Society said wouldn't take no notice. They cancelled it. Wouldn't listen to me at all. I went down to London, and it was opposite Elm Street, the Serious Fraud Squad. I went in the Serious Fraud Squad as well later, and I'm back into there to bring me a notice. And the Serious Fraud Squad said, we don't investigate any fraud under £1 million. And I said, well, okay.
And that was 1989?
This was 1992.
The case had gone on that long?
Yeah. I went to court. In actual fact, it said on the document, transferred to Wolverhampton County Court. And it was transferred to Walsall County Court. And I'm going to Wolverhampton County Court, and I'm asking, where's my case? It was lost for 16 months. And in that time, that I couldn't get the documents because I was in Walsall. And I'm told on the summons, it was transferred to there. Then they turned around and found the documents, and they transferred the documents to Wolverhampton, and they transferred them back to Walsall. But the properties had been sold. And when I went to court, I had the press there on the day that I was in Walsall, before Judge Smythe, an old man, and they cancelled it. And I had to go back the next day. There was no press there at all. They told the press not to turn up.
Oh, so it was a big case then?
Oh, yeah. And I walked into the court, and there was a police there, and they had the plans. And I said, what are the police doing to the judge? And he said, we'll call these plans. I said, no, I've already numbered them A, B and C. I said, but what are the police doing with the plans? these plans was only available to Holt, me and the Law Society. I didn't give the police plans. They would have to get them from the Law Society. And he said, well, I'm not worried about that. We'll mark them 1, 2 and 3. I said, no, they're already marked A, B and C. I said, I'm not marking them. And I said, that's the officer where he got the plans from, because these are identical to my plans. And he said, I'm not doing that. And I said, well, where are the court case documents? I've been asked to come to this court. There's no documents. There's no summons. It's been only this forged document. And he said to the clerk, and he said, look. And he sent the clerk with a cardboard box, and it was empty. And I said to the judge, don't be a fool. I said, you can't run the case with an empty cardboard box. He said, there's no documents. I said, well, where are they? Where are the case documents for the other side and me? He said, that's all that's there. I said, an empty cardboard box. Whose cardboard box is this? Yours, mine, or the defendant's? And I said, you should remove yourself off this case. This is corrupt. This is an abuse of the process. You should notify the Chief Constable about the police, what they've done. And I said, I'm having no more part of this. Is corrupt. And I left the court. And and I went to the Royal Courts of Justice then.
So you took the case to the Royal Courts of Justice?
To the Royal Courts of Justice.
And how were you funding yourself then with no legal aid?
I was doing a bit of work on the side, and it was all going in. I was doing protests. I went on from camping on the Parliament Square. I learned the law. I had to learn the law. I'm dyslexic, but I went to the Birmingham Law Library to look at the books on the law, which the police and the solicitors use the same library, and the Birmingham Library in town. I was using that, and any other library that I could get access to read about the law. And I taught myself the law. Then I went to the Royal Courts of Justice, and I was having appointments with ministers and masters and judges to get and I took 5 solicitors there, and I won the day, but I wasn't allowed to go to the court because 3 judges. I did take the one case to court, and it was Lord Chief Justice Leveson and another 2 judges. Leveson was the one. Leveson, Lord Chief Justice Leveson, yes, before him. And I preempted it. My dyslexia worked in, and I was looking at other cases to get how can they stop me. I'm representing myself in the Royal Courts of Justice.
And
I had friends with me.
What is your basis? What are you actually now saying to them in the courts? What do you want from the courts?
I want the people, the solicitors, and all these people who forged these documents brought to the court and charged. I can't get the police to do it. The police were involved. And he said,
this is a criminal offence.
This is a criminal offence.
The police should have got involved.
Yeah, the police were involved, yeah, but they was covering it up. Now,
what, the police covering
they're covering,
up?
they're covering
really?
up, yes, really, yeah. Now, I'll deal with the court case first. I didn't know this was going on. And this was 1993. I went before the judge in this case turned around and said, I'm not allowing this case to go ahead. And I said, why? He said, this documentation. And I said, what? And I said, he said, what you've wrote here. And I said, well, can I have an adjournment and I'll change it? And he said, no. I said, could I have 5 minutes? And I went through an hour down to, can I have a pen? Can I have the document? Can I cross it off and sign it? No. And I said, well, Your Honour, with the greatest respect, I was anticipating this, but I didn't tell him. And I said, I read a case law that he has to abide by. I said, in such and such and such a year, this man charged with murder had 11 adjournments, and you refused me 1. And with that, he never answered me. They stood up as if it was by 1, turned, they're looking at me, they turned to the right, and they all left the court. And I'm standing in the witness box, and the usher come over to me, the Falstaff said, Mr. Darby, the case is finished. I said, I'm waiting for him to come back. They've gone to discuss something. She said, they've walked out of the court. She said, the case is done. There's nothing to answer. They're not going to deal with it. And I said, so what do we do?
Is this
in the Royal Courts of Justice. And I called it from that day on the Royal Courts of Injustice.
So they can just walk out.
So I went then, they said what they did, it was unlawful. We're in Europe, remember, at the time, and a judge has to carry out the rule of law. We are governed by EU law, which supersedes our law, and the different articles, Article 2 are different articles. The judges can't do what they can do in English law in European law. They have to abide by the rule of law. It says that in the articles, which I've got them. But what I did then, I went to the Royal Court of Justice on an appeal. I made a leapfrog application to go to a criminal court on the grounds that the civil court, which was the Royal Court of Justice in my case, could not deal. It was out of their jurisdiction with what was quite clearly now a criminal conspiracy, that the solicitors, the defendant, had turned into a criminal case. I cannot, the court hasn't got the jurisdiction or the motion to do with this. Therefore, I'm making a leapfrog application to go to the House of Lords, which was the Supreme Court at the time, the Supreme Court, the House of Lords, and have the case transferred to a criminal court. It's a criminal matter. And Thomas Bingham, Lord Chief Justice Brown and Farragut, the Master of the Rolls, was in the chair, and he said, I'm stopping this appeal. And I said, it's not an appeal. This is a leapfrog motion to the House of Lords. I'm going over your head.
Now.
I'm going over your head. This is a criminal matter. You can't do with it. You are the Master of the Rolls, Civil Division. This is a criminal matter. And he said, that's it. I will stop any appeal. And I left the court.
So the Master of the Rolls.
Master of the Rolls, Thomas Bingham.
So Thomas Bingham
broke the law. Shut the case down.
So basically not abiding by any of the rules.
So I turned round to him before I left the court and I said, I'm making an application to you now, and I'll probably do it in writing. I want a statement of reasons why you have done what you've said today. This is unlawful. This isn't justice, and this is not a level playing field. I want your statement of reasons. That's what it's called, a statement of reasons. How you come to this conclusion? Would you give me that, sir? And I left the court. Then I had to write to him, and he turned round and afterwards sent me it, and I've got the form. The case was dismissed. The appeal was dismissed because the plaintiff didn't turn up. And the day I went to court was on the 3rd of November, when all the crippled people, 1993, when all the crippled people turned out and stopped the traffic in London, painted the gates, chucked paint up the 10 Downing Street gates and chained themselves to the gates, lied on the road, stopped London, brought it to a standstill. It was that day. But I even preempted that. And I left Birmingham at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was outside the Royal Courts of Justice before they opened, so they couldn't stop me getting there. And I had the case. That's when he stopped me. But he thought I wouldn't get there, and I did. I preempted him. And from that day on, it's just gone sideways on.
So what happened to the case in the end? What's the
case
result?
is still
ongoing?
Yeah, the case is still. I was stopped. I tried over the last...
Would it not be time out now?
It's not time barred, no. There's no time bar on it.
Right.
It's fraud. Fraud and theft isn't time barred. There's no time bar on it.
So this is the justice system in the UK today?
Yeah. Now, what I will show you is that the summons, the police said, when I took the action out in 1989, 1990, I reported it to the police.
Did you get a crime number?
No, they wouldn't give me one. No.
They wouldn't give you a number. Did they give you any receipts for any documents?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Only by letters, by telling me that they've investigated it. So obviously they've got to have that. I've got to report the crime for them to investigate, but they wouldn't give me no crime number. And this is 1990. Then I had a phone call in November, late November, about 9 o'clock of the night. I was working in my kitchen, and the phone was by the side of the fish tank, and the telephone went, and it was 9:30ish. I'm writing to the courts, working on the court case. Hello, Mr. Darby. Yes. My name's Mike O'Brien. I'm the MP for North Warwickshire. Well, I live in Staffordshire, so what I've learned now, what he did at the time, he broke the solicitor's role of conduct. He's not allowed to contact another MP's constituent. So, didn't say anything. I didn't know the law. You've been making allegations against the police. Could you tell me what it's about? He said, but before you tell me, I will have to warn you, give you notice. I've got Fred Olner listening to what you're saying. I said, well, I don't even know you're from Adam. I said, I don't know who you are. I said, but if you're genuine, I said, I've got nothing to hide. I'll tell you what's going on. And I've told him. And he said, very serious stuff. Can you? And I said, well, why should I want to bring the documents to you? Are you going to investigate it? You've said you are, but are you going to? I'll give you my word, I'll investigate it. Well, if that's what you've said, I'll hold you to your word. Where do I deliver the documents? I'll have to work them out. It won't be straight away. I'll have to put them in order, so you understand. And he gave me an address, which was the coal miners' office in Bedworth that he was sharing with the coal miners. What I know about Mike O'Brien, he's a communist, and he started off as a social communist in the party, and then he joined the Labour Party. His father was a train driver, and
so you deposited the documents? Were they the originals or copies?
The copies, but when
so
I went,
you kept the originals?
Oh, I've kept the originals all the time, and I went to the miner's office, and I had a bit of a run around really at the reception. They didn't know, they was acting a bit silly really. I said, he's given me this address. This is the miner's office, not the MP's. I said, no, but he's renting an office here, surely. Well, I don't know about that. And I said, well, find out. I've got some documents for him, very important. And they just playing silly billy with me. So
right.
And he said, up the stairs, go up the stairs. So I went up the stairs, and he met me up the stairs. And he said, put him in that room. There was a room. He'd come out of the room up the passageway, and there's a room with the door open, wide open. He said, put him on the table in that room. And I looked. There was a table there. The chairs was against the wall. And I went into the room, and he walked off. When I come out, he'd gone. And I left the building. 3 weeks later, he said, I've checked.
Is this the MP now?
The MP. But he's a solicitor. Mike O'Brien is a solicitor.
A solicitor at the same time as being an MP?
Yes.
Right. So how do they manage to fit in another job when they're supposed
well, I don't
to be
know,
working
but they can still
5 days a week?
Most solicitors, there's a lot of QCs. And you can still be a solicitor, but you get better jobs because of your experience on law. So he turned around and he said...
to me, it's an obvious conflict of interest.
Pardon?
There's a conflict of interest.
Oh, well, in as much, not really, because he said he'd work for me. There's a conflict of interest that he's working for somebody else's constituent.
Yes.
That is a serious conflict of interest. but the fact that he's offering to do it because he's an MP, I didn't know that anyway, that he was breaking the law. And I thought, well, if I want a coal man, I don't go to a solicitor. In this case, I want a solicitor. And I don't go to a coal man. I've got a solicitor. He's offered to do my work for me, so only a fool would say no. So I went along with him, give him all the documents, and quite disappointed. He said, I've checked all the stuff. I don't think you've got any evidence. I can't see any evidence. And in case the police have missed any evidence, I've sent the documents to them. Now, I was naming the police as being involved with the crime. And he sent the documents to the very people who I'm accusing. He never asked me if he could have it. And then... I've checked.
So basically they're forewarned us to your case.
Well, he wrote again, and I said, and he wrote again. And he said, as far as I'm concerned, the matter's closed. Job done. The matter's closed. That's it. I'll give you documents to the police, and you clear off. He can't say anything. He's a solicitor. In actual fact, from that moment on. The documents which came about, I might have to look for this one here because I was going to go through these documents with you. The last time I reported this crime was on the 1st of May this year. And
so you're still working on this case,
I'm working,
of May.
It's gone bigger yet, it is a full-blown conspiracy.
Are the media still involved in this at all? Are you feeding this information to the media?
They won't touch it. There's gagging orders. You've been
gagged?
I've dressed up as a judge outside the Royal Court of Justice. I've pulled a pony and trap without the pony, dressed as a judge from Birmingham City Centre to down the Stratford Road to Henley and Arden, 22 miles, pulling this truck with somebody sitting in there with all the signs in a judge's uniform.
And nobody's covering this story at all?
They've all told me there's a gagging order on it.
Wow.
I've camped on Parliament Square next to Brian Howe.
So what do you stand at? So you're still proceeding with this. Your letter of the 1st of May, what was that? Who was that to?
The 1st of May, I went to Scotland Yard proper, And they said, you've got to go to the West End Central Police Station, Savile Row, and report it there. This is appointments only. And I doubt if you get an appointment. Very nice. So I had to go to the... And I had a bundle of documents that was made out on the dated the 30th. And the documents were addressed to...
Is there anything you want to show the camera?
Yeah, I'll read it out, then show the camera afterwards. The documents, this is part of the document. This is one, and it's called Exhibit 1.
Oh, this is the one dated 30th of April.
Yeah, and it's dated the 13th of April 2018. And it's addressed to the Right Honourable Mrs Theresa May, Prime Minister, care of the Right Honourable Mr Jeremy Wright QC, the Attorney General. That is the highest law officer in the land who advises governments. And the power of this man is that if this country wants to attack another country, like we did Iraq, he would need the Attorney General's signature on a document to take us to war. The Prime Minister couldn't do it. It would have to be the Attorney General's, under the Attorney General. So this is how powerful this man is. Now, I've been stopped, and I will show the...
Do you want to show the document to the
I
camera?
will show the document to the camera, yeah. There it is, as you can see.
So you say, Dear Attorney General,
Attorney
Mr
General.
Jeremy Wright QC, Sir, may I very respectfully, on issues of national atomic security, request you to safely and speedily please deliver the enclosed bundle of documented evidence to the Right Honourable Mrs Theresa May.
Yeah.
So there was a document attached to this.
There was a lot of documents.
And you've got evidence
80 odd.
that they've got it.
I was sending registered letters to the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, the Attorney General. I went to take this back a little bit. I'm going a little bit further. In 2010, I tried to lay a criminal information at Westminster Magistrates Courts, just round the corner from the Houses of Parliament. I had a witness with me.
So what did you try to do, sorry?
To lay a criminal information to the magistrates.
Right, okay.
On the common law, I have that duty. On the statutes, I have that duty. If you have information of crime and you don't report it, you can face, you are breaking the law, and you could face 7 years imprisonment. You could.
Yeah.
What you're doing, you're concealing a criminal act.
Right.
Knowingly concealing a criminal act, and it's a criminal offence. That is statute.
Yep. That's under common law.
That's under common law,
Yeah.
and under statutory law. It is black ink law.
Right.
Now, I went to the courts, and I saw the chief clerk to the magistrates, who was a QC, and she tried to evade me, and I said, I'll start shouting, you better come back. I'm not having this, I know the law. And she said, well, I said, no, let's go into a private room and we'll discuss it. And I had a witness with me. And I went into a room and she read the documents and she said, well, we'll have to do it my way. And I said, well, your way, as long as it's within the law. I don't take that literally, your way. We do it lawfully. Through the way you're going to do it, your process, you're going to do it, but it's got to be done lawfully. And I said, will you sign the document? Because the document wasn't signed. And it was an affidavit. Well, a statement of truth and fact, which was...
Who produced this document?
I did.
Right, but it hadn't been signed?
No, because I'm taking it to court, and the clerk of the court signs it.
Has to sign it.
Has to sign it. And it's done. I have to sign it in front of the clerk. I can't sign it.
Okay.
So it's unsigned.
Right.
And I said, I will sign it and you sign it. I said, but you sign it first. She said, I'm not signing it. I said, well, if you don't sign it, I can't sign it. She said, well, I'm not signing it. And it was the egg or the chicken. Who come first, the egg or the chicken? And I'm not going to play that game. I said, so what you're saying, you're going to do it your way and your way only. I said, okay, I'll go along with that. I've got a witness, listen. And I said, there's my documents, give it to the magistrates. I went on appointment to lay criminal information to the Honourable Magistrates. Okay, leave it with me. And I've gone all the way down to London. I've got to go all the way back to Tamworth and Birmingham and wait for the appointment to go back down there and do it. I didn't mind. But 2 days later, I got a notice. Abusive process. You haven't got no evidence. The allegations you're making are so serious that you need permission from the Attorney General before you can put it before a magistrate. Well, there's a contradiction. If I've got no evidence, the allegations I'm making are so serious, I need permission of the Attorney General to get it to court. If I've got no evidence, I don't need any permission off anybody, because I've got no evidence. Job done. Don't have to tell me.
So basically, the bottleneck is now with the Attorney General.
With the Attorney General, Dominic Greaves.
Dominic Greaves.
Dominic Greaves.
That name keeps cropping up.
It should do. He's not a very honourable man. So I'm writing to...
MP for Beaconsfield.
Yeah, MP for Beaconsfield. When I used to go down to London, the train used to stop because I used to go the scenic route and stop at Beaconsfield, and then we go on to London to do my demonstrations, which cost me thousands of pounds to do, and I've done it over many years with no advantage. I used to go all over the country doing
it. So
it.
basically, Dominic Grieve has now got the
my
case.
Request. I asked him. I've been told that I need the Attorney General's permission. So Dominic Grieve is the Attorney General. I write to Dominic.
He was the
Greaves.
Attorney General then.
And
in 2010.
Yeah,
but he's not the Attorney General now. It's Jeremy Wright. So
Jeremy
has he
Wright.
passed the documents to Jeremy Wright?
No. I kept writing letters. I've got the letters, and I say, "Are you stupid?" The second letter, I said, "The Prime Minister's give up his wages increase. There's MPs doing away with wages increase. The country is in dire straits. People aren't getting enough money to live. Children can't feed properly, and you idiot, are wasting public money and my time making me write letters to you to get a simple yes or no answer. I will ask you again for the second time. Could you please answer? Do I need the Attorney General's permission to lay a criminal information? It's not rocket science. Yes or no?"
And you're still waiting.
And he didn't answer that letter, so I wrote again. I said, "You're a very ignorant person. Will you answer my letter?"
Is this Dominic or Jeremy now?
Dominic Greaves' office, yeah. And I wrote back and said, "The Attorney General doesn't give legal advice. The only advice I can give you is see your Citizens Advice Bureau."
Oh, right. Okay.
Which was...
This would be quite out of their depth, I would have thought,
This was really annoying. I mean, they're treating me now like a child, less than a child.
Yeah.
Subnormal. I'm
So
somebody out of their domain, and it's like a third.
They've not expected you to keep pursuing this.
No,
let's be honest.
This is right. Yes.
Because the system grinds you down.
Yes.
And you just get so fed up.
Yeah.
And especially if it's just a monetary situation.
Yeah.
They just want you to go away and get over it.
Yeah.
So, just to conclude now, because we wanted just to give people a bit of background as to your own personal case, what would you say to the people listening today? Because obviously this is an ongoing case.
Well, you've got to do obviously what the law says you do. You report it to the police, which I've done, but I've got legal representation to government, to Parliament, and this is where it's got to go now. So I've asked my MP, Christopher Pincher, what a name, Pincher. I'll give him the documents. I make an appointment to see him, and he says in front of a witness that he will deliver the bundle of documents to the Prime Minister, Mr. David Cameron.
Now you're going back a bit, because this is now April 2018.
Yeah, this is after.
So
Jeremy Wright hasn't answered me.
Right.
The courts, and before Jeremy Wright, I've asked him to do Jeremy Wright.
So Cameron's had the leave. So Cameron's had the documents.
Well, no. He said he would give them to Cameron, and I gave him a copy for himself, and I gave him the documents under their agreement to give. And then he didn't answer me, and I had to write again, and he said, "I've passed them to a minister." I said, "Hang on, no, you didn't say a minister. You're supposed to be giving them to the Prime Minister. It's addressed to David Cameron." These are matters.
So which minister was it?
He won't say. He won't say which minister it was. I said, "Well, if you've given to a minister, name the minister." I complained to the complaints ombudsman, Catherine, Privileges and Standards, and she used the letter.
So they're giving you the runaround, basically.
Oh, totally. But this is, I can put my hands on this.
Don't worry about that. So basically, just to sum up, what should you be saying to the people out there today?
Well, if your MP doesn't do anything, you've been to the police, where do you go? I've tried to lay criminal information 8 times. I've tried to carry out my lawful duty to the law, abiding by the rule of law, as statute says. And I'm a witness to a crime that nobody will listen. They won't let me tell anybody.
So this is the justice system in Great Britain today. I mean, I've been personally very supportive of a lady called Melanie Shaw. I don't know if you've heard of Melanie Shaw.
Yes, I've heard of Melanie, yes.
And she's a lady who is due to be released from prison on the 2nd of June. She's still incarcerated in Style Prison. And there are these allegations of what she may or may not have done in prison. But had those allegations actually been real, you would have expected reports to have been produced after the first offence.
That's right.
So why it takes 4 offences, alleged offences, and then a report now pending, the system is not to help innocent people. The system is, it could implode on itself at this rate because there is so much, there's so many problems now. There is not justice being meted out. And that's why we need to have a return, surely, to common law.
I know when the first time you told me that on the phone, I know the reason why they're doing it, why they don't have to answer. They're using European law, Article 42, warrants of arrest. And on a warrant of arrest, they don't have to tell you what you've done, who you've done it to, why you've done it. They don't have to give you a consultation with a defence lawyer. All they do is notify you that you're arrested and they'll put you in prison, and they don't even give you a limited time for that incarceration period.
Even if you're arrested on this soil.
Innocent, and you're walking down the road and a police officer arrests you under the European arrest warrant, he doesn't have to tell you what you're arresting you for. He doesn't have to notify your family. You don't even have to have, you can't have legal representation.
This sounds like the European arrest warrant.
That's the European arrest warrant. They've done it to a friend of mine, incarcerated him, who was trying to expose paedophilia with judges and police officers on a Down syndrome girl, Robert Green.
Right, okay.
So they done it to him and they stole all his computers and everything.
So to sum up, what is our message for the people today? We need to unite.
Oh, indeed we do. You do.
We need to set aside our differences because our liberty is at stake.
You've got no liberties. It is a police state.
It is a police state.
Do not kid yourself. If I can just show you a document now, and I'll show you which I think...
Is this relating to this case?
This is related to this case. Oh, yes, indeed. What I was talking, they transferred my case using forged documents. Now, when they incarcerate you, they don't need forged documents. They just need to advise you that you are being arrested under the European arrest warrant, and it's an Order 42.
Order 42.
And you are incarcerated for an unlimited period with no charges. And even if they let you go, or they don't charge you, they usually let you go because they've got no evidence to arrest you. They've got no evidence at all.
Right.
They've got no evidence against your friend. They had no evidence against Robert Green. They kept him in prison 18 months and stole all his, discredited him, stopped him working, allowed the people who was doing it to form alibis, friendships in the Old Boy network who can really go to town on Robert. And this is it in Scotland, Scottish law. I'll show you a document.
Okay, to sum up.
Yeah, I think we'll leave that one for the time being here, and I will go to...
So which is this document that you wish to show?
I told the police that I'd uncovered
the police
criminal
in
conspiracy.
which time period?
North Warwickshire Police.
Which time?
Warwickshire. In 1999.
Right, so...
When I uncovered the documents in late 1999.
Okay.
And I said, I've got the documents that were used to transfer the case. They're forged documents, a summons, and they said there's nothing wrong with the summons. Mike O'Brien, the Solicitor General, who was made into the Solicitor General to give him some protection. The police, everybody, the Law Society said there was nothing wrong with the documents.
Well, so what is this document?
This is the document. This is a summons.
Yeah.
This is the summons that...
Summons from who to who?
They used against me.
The police?
No, the solicitors used in the court. And if I can get it.
So in 1989, the solicitors sent you a summons.
Yeah.
To say...
There was a forgery.
It was a forged summons?
Forged summons, yeah.
How do you know it was a forgery? Because it wasn't signed, or...?
No, I've got it here. I've got the summons there, but rather than do that, if I can show the camera, remember when I turned around and said that the case was transferred to
From one court to another?
Yeah, it was to Wolverhampton.
Right, okay.
The case was transferred to Wolverhampton.
Right, yeah.
But it didn't go to Wolverhampton, it went to Walsall.
Right.
And there's a summons there, an excerpt from the summons to Wolverhampton.
Okay.
But it's under section 45 of the County Court Act 1959. And this is a copy of the real summons that was a valid summons. And I've copied paragraph 3 there. On the section 40 of the County Court Act 1984. Not under section 45 under the County Court Act 1959.
So can you explain that to the people at home?
They can't. I can, yes.
So what
But they turned around and said, this summons was a valid summons.
But it's
and I
not.
said, it's not. And the judge wouldn't sign it. You couldn't, under all the sections, under the Supreme Court practice, Order 26 hadn't been complied to. Nobody had got any evidence. I hadn't got no evidence. They were selling the evidence. And then the case was transferred after all the evidence was gone. I've got no evidence. I can't get none. There's no way that I can go to court and ask for evidence because there's no case to answer now. It's a criminal matter. It's a conspiracy. They have stolen high civil court action documents. And they've used forged documents, forged a judge's signature, Robin Sankey's signature on there. And the police are saying it's not a forgery. Little did they know, being dyslexic, I have to check everything out. And I do it so thoroughly that I did this thoroughly. And in the pursuing, in actual fact, I've got the exact date.
Yeah.
The 17th of September, 1992. I wrote to the Lord Chancellor's Courts Administrator, Vernon Grove in Birmingham, who was in charge of all the courts, both the High Court and the Lower Court.
Right, to say...
This is his Courts Administrator of the Oxford Midland Circuit. Dated the 17th. Quote, and he writes to me, I confirm that the summons for directions listed at the hearing before Judge Sankey was in an obsolete form, and that the correct summons from which should have been used is the form which at paragraph 3 refers to transaction on the section 40 of the County Court Act 1989. Now that is the highest courts administrator. The Lord Chancellor is in charge of all the courts. He's not a judge, he's not a solicitor, he's not a barrister working in the courts, he's not a police officer, he runs the courts. And he said the summons should not have been used. The action should have been put under that, and there it is.
So this is just extra information, just to show the people at home
that this is corrupt.
That this is corrupt.
The police are corrupt
beyond belief.
Beyond belief.
So, Alan, thank you so much for coming into the studios today.
Okay.
I know we're going to be following up on your case.
Yes.
Theresa May now has your papers.
No, she
Allegedly.
doesn't. No, she doesn't know. You can send them to her if you want to.
Well, we've got this.
Well,
haven't
no,
we?
the police wouldn't take it off me. They gave me a crime number, and quickly on this one.
We've got this letter to Theresa May.
Yes, but it hasn't been delivered.
Right,
I couldn't give it to Jeremy Wright. But what happens, these people, when I reported the crime and got a crime number, the police have got to tell you within 3 days whether they're going to investigate or shut the crime down. And I'll give it to them on the 1st, and they've shut it down on the 3rd. And he says, in relation to the theft report lodged to the Metropolitan Police on the 1st of May, the crime has been closed and no further investigation will take place into the matter. There is no evidence to suggest that the correspondence you sent in January to the Speaker of the House or the Prime Minister has been stolen. There is, and I've got it here. Because the letters I sent were recorded letters with track and trace with the signature to say they'd been delivered. And I've got this letter. And I'll show... Well,
I was going to say, so basically we've got evidence now that the police are corrupt, the MPs are corrupt.
Scotland Yard this is. Because this letter is dated the 26th of May, and they give me £9.50 for a letter that was posted to Sajid David that Sajid David didn't get. This is the Royal Mail told me, and they've refunded me. Yeah, this letter says the same letter was delivered on the 9th to Sajid David, and the matter is closed, and that signature is the person who gave it to Sajid David. Now, if you look at these two documents, I'll separate these because it's easier to see. This one is an official letter. This one that's paying me the money is not, because there's no name there. There is no mark on there to show where the letters come from. Is that camera on?
Alan? Yeah. So
there is the official mark there
right. Okay.
that the Royal Mail send, and there is the address, and it reads Duxford Contact Centre, 2 Admiral Way, Duxford, International Business Park,
This is
Sunderland.
oh right. Okay. That's the Royal Mail, though, isn't it?
The Royal Mail, yes,
Yeah.
but their headquarters are basically in Plymouth, but they've used in
So
some.
I just think it's
And this one
yeah.
has got no kite mark, no mark there, no transfer mark, and there's no address where it was dealt with. And as you can see, it's paying me £9.50 for the letter that was delivered. There's the number, JS.
Okay. Alan.
JS.
So we
00.
are. So where does this leave you now?
Well, it shows that the police are quite right in actual fact, but this officer has obviously, and there's me.
Where's the case?
There's
Where's
the
this
number.
case, though?
There's
Alan?
the number that was issued from the police.
Yeah. But
on the
where does
first-
this leave you now? Where can you go now?
I've got to lay criminal information. I've got permission from an honourable Attorney General. Dominic Greaves told me to see the Citizens Advice Bureau, which I wouldn't do.
Sure.
Jeremy Wright's office, within a month of asking me pertinent questions, have I got the evidence to show? And I did. I sent it to him, and they wrote back and said, you don't need anybody's permission to lay a criminal information before the magistrate. You don't need the Attorney General's. And I said, but I will be stopped again. And the Attorney General's legal advisor turned around and said, Mr. Darby, if anybody tries to stop you, give them this telephone, and this is my telephone number at the AG's office.
So where can you go now?
Pardon?
That's it. That is as far as we've got.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Alan,
So I can lay
You've been funding yourself on this case
all the time. Yes.
Imagine the people at home who are employing solicitors and barristers.
Well, what I can say is that if you get a corrupt solicitor and there's enough money in it for them to do it, the solicitor that she was using, Mrs. Holt was using, turned round and packed up with Argyles because I'd caught them bang to rights, was issuing criminal charges against them. They distanced themselves from Argyles, took Argyle's name down off their offices that was in Atherstone, and put Archer Adams up. And from April 1992 until 1998, they were stealing on average £1 million a year from the client's funds.
Well, I think it's a salutary tale, really, because there'll be people watching today who are contemplating studying law, and if they are going to enter such a corrupt profession, then perhaps they.
If you want a life of crime, be a solicitor. Be a
right,
solicitor.
on that message, thank you everybody from Stepping Stones here in sunny Wiltshire. Thanks for listening, and thank you so much, Alan, for coming to talk to us about your tale.
It's been a pleasure. Can I show you the evidence that all the money?
Thank you, Alan.
Next time.
Thank you. Yes, next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Just to throw